Welcome to the Chronically Healthy Life show. When you hear the word chronically, do you automatically associate it with chronic disease? We all do. It's been programmed right into us. But what if we flip that whole idea on its head? Let's discover how we can create chronic health in our bodies, our minds, our finances, our relationships, and our lives. Let's jump right on in. I'm Andy, and joining me is my life partner in all things, Minna.
So you know how last week we talked about relationship between love and longevity?
Correct, yes.
So let's talk about money and happiness this week.
Oh, great. They always say money can buy happiness, but do you think that's true?
No, I never saw. I think it's like grumpy people that does that.
It's so true. It's usually the people that are spending more than they have that is always chasing for more money, right? So definitely, I don't think money can buy them happiness in that aspect, right?
Well, it's one of those things. Money is one of those things that you cannot live without,
Correct.
right? But you don't need a lot. So you keep chasing that as your dream, but not knowing what to do with it. Then I think that's a problem. You don't know what to do with money, then that doesn't bring you any happiness. But you do how to spend your money, do in a way that makes you happy, then you'll be happy.
I agree. I agree. I know you've been reading a lot of books lately, Minna. So what book do you want to talk about this week that you read about?
So a while back, I actually read this book by an author called Eric Barker, and it's called Barking Up the Wrong Tree. And it was a very interesting book. But because I like the book, I follow his blog also.
Oh, cool. Okay.
So this actually came from his blog post, which
Okay.
is like how to spend money to maximize your happiness. And he had come up with 7 ways. So actually, more than eight ways maybe. There you go. So let's start with number 1 is to buy many small pleasures versus a few larger ones. So you know how some people save up all year for that one big vacation, and once you get to the vacation, you build up all the energy, the anticipation, and then you go for that big trip or whatever big purchase, and like
And then it's all over, and then you have
it's all
to,
over.
and then
It's like a new car, right? It's just that goes on in 2 days.
so for them, it's probably better to schedule out a few shorter vacations throughout the year, right? So
Smaller trips throughout the year that would decrease your stress and actually makes you happier.
that's awesome. That's awesome. That's literally what we're actually doing now, right?
So it's half business trip, so no, I wouldn't call that. But the second thing is to buy experiences, to spend your money on experiences instead of just buying stuff.
That one is definitely a harder one for us to do, at least for me.
You see people buying all these name brand bags and watches and whatnot, and they do spend a lot of money on it. But rather than doing that and that bag or that wallet, whatever, it gets old really fast,
True.
right? You can do some kind of experiences that you can cherish the experience and you can relive it. You can talk about it, and it kind of just stays with you longer if you have experience to you do something rather than have something.
I agree, and I think some of the experiences people should do more of is some of these live events, live training, and stuff like that, where you can learn a little bit more, right?
Yep. So then the third one on how to maximize your happiness with money is to delay consumption and increase anticipation. So you know how when we were kids and we wait all year for that Christmas present?
Yes.
That's building up anticipation. But when we go older, we buy our own gifts, so we don't do that anymore. We don't
Correct.
buy each other Christmas gifts anymore. So
That's
we
so
lost the
true.
anticipation. And that's what actually brings you happiness, right?
That's so true because we're just buying it because we need it, and then it's just another object, right? It's like so quickly I want it, and then once you got it, well, did we really need it, right? So true, so true.
So the fourth one is actually kind of interesting, and is to consider the full effect on your purchase. And his example was the idea of camping. Now, the idea of camping sounds good, right? You're going with the nature, you get to see wildlife. But when you consider the full effect of it, there is the bugs, the rain, the snow, the bad weather, the snakes, the uncomfortable bed, the cold baths, the bath showers, and all that.
And the uncomfortable outhouses, I have to say.
So there you go. That's a full effect of what your money is going to to get you. So the whole idea is not just the wildlife, the nature, the beautiful things you see on TV. There's more to that. So,
That is so true. That's why we're glamping folks. I'm sorry to say.
really. So then the fifth one is to follow the crowd. It can be a good idea. So like popular things like what is that? Tickle Me Elmo.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it was called
Like
Tickle Me
yeah,
Elmo.
so
Yeah.
popular things can kind of make you happier because now you kind of bonding with other people that has the same thing.
Have similar things
Yeah,
to
some of
talk
the things you
about,
can
right?
supposed to bring you a little bit more happiness than you buy something that nobody likes.
Yeah, like remember, was it 10 years ago now when Nintendo came out with Nintendo Wii? Everyone wanted a Nintendo Wii so you can play weekend. That was actually very cool. Yeah, yeah.
So then six is actually kind of important, right?
Okay.
To spend money on something that gives you emotional dividends, something that fulfills emotional needs, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like developing a skill,
Mm-hmm.
reading a book, right? Spending money on a book or a course, building some kind of competency, learn to take a class, learn to cook or something,
Correct.
or take a survival course. Maybe that's not a bad idea.
So learning life skills essentially is.
Life skills, something that gives you more joy,
Mhm.
something that makes you build your confidence, that gives you more emotional confidence, I guess.
Nice. I like
Right?
that. I like that. The next one I really like, and that's to buy back your time, right?
Yeah.
And
If you like to scrub your floor, you're always welcome to come to my house. But I do not know anybody actually likes to do it, and we hated it, so that's why we outsource all our house cleaning. Some other things you can. There's a lot of things you can outsource.
Mhm.
Depending on where you are, you can outsource just not just the cleaning, but maybe your virtual assistants, maybe
Yes.
even your cooking. You can have private chefs, depending on where you are.
Correct.
Chauffeurs, right? That's
Correct.
one way of saving you time, buying you time. So spending the money to buy time, which is priceless, is definitely a good deal.
Exactly, and it's so popular now with even like getting groceries, right? Because I know when we go groceries, we go in for one thing, and we end up buying a whole lot of things. But if you're doing it online, where you're getting someone to do a private shopper for you, you're just getting what you're asking for, right?
Sometimes they give you better stuff.
Yeah.
Long time ago, and this company went out of business.
Yeah.
Remember Webvan?
Yes, that was amazing,
They
actually.
actually pick better groceries than
Yeah.
I can pick, so I
Correct.
don't know what they do.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, they went out of business. I think Amazon bought their logistics. But sometimes when you pay someone that just do that, they can do a better job for you. I know that our house cleaners definitely do clean our house better than I
Oh,
can.
for sure. Like I don't know how she gets the floor squeaky clean. No matter how I scrub the floors, we don't get that feeling, right? And she's using all our cleaning products. And we can't even say they're using special cleaning products, right?
There's
So
nothing but buying time, but spending money to buy time, we all for it.
definitely, definitely.
So the last one is interesting.
Mm-hmm.
You know how we like going out for ice cream?
Oh yeah.
It's kind of like a treat,
Mm-hmm.
right? Which is different from if you buy like a tub of ice cream and just come home and
Correct.
that's kind of sad,
Yeah.
That's when you do when you're depressed, right?
Correct. You're watching the rom coms and
you
yeah.
ice cream a little bit. But yeah, so make it a treat. So spending money to an ice cream shop for the same ice cream is a different feeling than if you buy a tub of ice cream, even though it's probably more cost effective.
I totally agree. And that is one of our treats that we like. One of the other treats that we like to do usually after shows, we go for just a quick little bite just to celebrate each success after each show, right? So,
right. So the bad things that we don't want to buy because we don't stock anything, any bad foods at home.
correct.
So we just go to eat and get the French fries or whatnot, and just satisfy your cravings, and it's a treat.
Exactly.
It makes you happier, and we're all good.
Exactly. So coming right up, we're going to have our special returning guest for the week. We'll see you soon.
You have to say her name.
Oh, no, go ahead.
Her name's Shoshanna, so she'll be with us shortly.
Shoshanna French. There, I got it right. We all hope to age gracefully so we can enjoy later years with energy, vitality, and good health. But so often with age, our bodies show signs of things just aren't the same as they used to be. Our energy, skin, healing recovery time, and sleep all go downhill. If you had physical trauma that happened to your body like I did, this happens much faster. I felt like a 30-year-old trapped in an 80-year-old body. But do you remember as kids the boundless energy we had, how fast we recovered? This is not because of getting old, but because of active stem cells inside our bodies. These are the cells that can generate and regenerate all the cells and structures in the human body. They are the building blocks of our organs, tissues, blood, and immune system. They also serve as an innate repair system everywhere inside the body. But as we get older, stem cell activity slows down, become less effective in repairing damage, and decline. By the age of 20, we only have 1 billion stem cells left. By 30, they decline by 60%. By 50, they decline by 75%. 60 by 90%. And by 80, we're lucky to have 50 million active stem cells. But what if we can naturally stimulate our bodies to reactivate and regenerate new stem cells through phototherapy without drugs? Now we can with our LifeWave X39 stem cell activation patches. Reclaim your youth and look younger, feel stronger, perform better, and heal faster. Get your patches now at lifewave.com/chronically healthy life. It's not anti-aging, it is reverse aging.
Hi, everyone. Today on Kids Corner, we're going to do a swap this for that episode to help you with getting your kids to eat a little bit healthier and without really a lot of pain on your part. So today I'm going to talk about pasta. There are just so many problems with wheat pasta, not the least of which is that wheat in this country is pretty much all GMO. And so it's undigestible. I personally went gluten-free a long time ago, which means I completely eliminated wheat. But I really like to have pasta, and kids love pasta. They love macaroni and cheese. And so I thought, what's a great way for parents to be able to keep providing those goodies for your kids without the problems? So I want to recommend Banza pasta. It is a chickpea-based pasta, and it's high protein. So the other added benefit, besides the fact there's no wheat in it, is that it will not crash you. You know how sometimes when you eat something high carb, it crashes your energy. So kids will eat it at lunch and then they're crashing in class after lunch. So this way you can give them a high protein pasta that is made from chickpeas, no wheat, and will not crash them. So it's a much better choice for pasta dishes. You can add it to anything you would normally add pasta to. Add this kind instead. It cooks up just the same as regular pasta, and it's very tasty. I highly recommend it. In fact, you really can't tell the difference. So that's an extra added bonus, I think. So the easiest thing to do is just to keep swapping things that are easy and simple for little better choices with your kids. They will really notice and they'll be doing a lot better. And so will you. Okay, ciao for now.
Hi, Christy. I can't hear you.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay. Hi.
Okay.
I'm so happy.
Hi.
I'm so happy to be here with you today.
I am too. I'm delighted that you came back to our show. Let me just remind everybody about you. Shoshanna French's goal is to cultivate wildly successful leaders and teams through the practical power of intuitive decision making and authentic communication. As the founder of Simple Spirit, a keynote speaker, trainer, and coach, she works with leaders and organizations globally. She blends mindfulness, personal development, and her years in intuitive study to help her clients transform their beliefs, change their habits, and develop a new level of self-awareness so they are free to fulfill the vision they have for their personal and professional lives. Welcome, welcome, welcome back. So I'm so glad you're here today.
Me too, me too. And it's like Andy and Min were talking about in the beginning about how the article she read, the book she read, and then the blog about the 8 different ways to sort of relate to money. If you adopted even 2 or 3 of those of the 8 over time, it would totally change how you would think you'd relate to money differently. And then all of a sudden, you'd have this transformed habit in your life in the way that you relate to money. So sometimes we think it has to be this big, huge change that we're making. But quite often in my work with clients, it's really small, consistent changes over time that really have the biggest impact and make the biggest difference, both for leaders, but also for their teams and organizations and families for that matter.
Absolutely. I can definitely relate that to back to my years of teaching. It's the small things I did with the kids that when I would tweak something that would get the best responses from the kids.
Yeah,
Yeah, definitely. Well, today we are going to talk about how intuitive insight creates healing. I'm just loving this because I think it's pretty rare that people connect intuition with healing. We tend to connect it in a more like it's insight or perception, but actual healing, I think this is a really important topic that we're going to talk about today.
Well, and sometimes when we're talking about healing, it can be all the different levels. And I love Chronically Healthy. Ever since I was on, this show last year, I really started to think about what are the things that we focus on that allow us to be chronically healthy in our life, just like the 4 categories they talk about in the beginning, right? Our money and our independence and our physical health, but also our mental and emotional health as well. And so my hope is in our conversation today, people can see how intuitive decision making and being connected to your intuition can impact or affect all the different areas of health and well-being.
Oh, I love that. That thank you for saying that, because it's definitely our goal to just flip that whole thing on its head and get people out of the mindset of chronic illness and into chronic health.
Mm-hmm.
It's much more fun, that's for sure.
Yeah, for certain. Feels more like you are creating something instead of pushing something away or pushing something up a hill.
Yes, or just reacting.
Yes.
Just
exactly.
reacting to the things that come along. Yes.
Right.
Definitely. Well, so let's start with you. How has your intuitive insight led to healing for you and your clients, your family?
Well, I will say, like to talk more about kind of my own personal health journey is that I pay really close attention to when something comes kind of into my field. And I mean that in a really kind of concrete way. When I notice that I'm having conversations with people out in the world, like when I'm at the grocery store or when I'm with my family, or I'm even talking to a new client and conversations start repeating themselves, I pay really close attention because it tends to be like, oh, that's something to pay attention to, right? Like, oh, it's now kind of showing up as a pattern. Maybe I should check in about that. So a number of years ago, I was, kind of noticing some conversations that sort of popped up over and over and over again. And they were conversations about the connection between brains and physical movement and exercise. And I have always been somebody who likes being physically active. I live in Colorado. We have mostly pretty good weather, except for about 3 months a year where I just cannot stand it. But outside of that, it's pretty awesome. And I had always known that when I moved, I physically felt better, but I was really more related to physical health and not actually related to that the brain and the chemistry and all of that. So someone saying that to me led me on this journey and pathway to really dive into how the brain and our bodies are connected, related to movement of our bodies. And so I did some research, and then I started to pay attention to the connection between what kinds of movement connected to how I actually felt physically. And I won't go on the big long story because we have a limited amount of time, but I will say that the end result is I became a chronic mover. I became a chronic exerciser. And some of the like really small thick changes, but in general, my mood is pretty good every day. I have endless energy, whether I sleep 5 hours or 8, and all the numbers that the doctors look for. And in my family, heart disease, all the kind of things that you see, high cholesterol, issues with eyesight and diabetes and all those kind of things. None of those numbers are that for me because I became a chronic exerciser. And I decided to do that, not just because someone was telling me to, but because my intuition led me in multiple conversations to just like take the hint from the universe and research it on my own and follow that. And then I always like to say sometimes our intuition can point to that, which is the biggest problem we're having. I have a client who did not feel well. She went to one doctor and the doctor said, it's all in your head. You're fine. They did a whole bunch of tests, right? And the tests didn't give any conclusive evidence. But she still didn't feel right. And she was trusting her intuition. And she went and got a second opinion. And they ran a little more intensive tests, ones that you couldn't have gotten approved because there was nothing in her blood in the numbers. And they discovered a very, very early stage cervical cancer. And they were able to catch it. Like usually by the time they catch cervical cancer, ovarian cancer is pretty advanced. But hers was only stage 2. She was able to like catch it early, do the treatment, and she's been in recovery for 3 years. And if she hadn't have followed her intuition, who knows what would have happened. So I believe that one, intuition can help you improve your health wherever you are as the baseline, improve it, but it can also guide you to where actual problems are happening that there's no real external evidence for yet. That's the gift of intuition, is it helps us see that which we don't have, concrete evidence for yet.
Yes. And speaking about going to health practitioners, I know I can say I've definitely used my intuition on if I get a bad feeling from the physician or the nurse or something, I literally have walked out of an office and said, I'm not going to this doctor, and found someone else because I've had too many. Yeah, there have been too many. I had a really bad situation with my mom where the doctor just hacked at her. She had a little skin cancer thing removed from the top of her head, and he just we had to actually have it repaired. So and after that I said, if I get that feeling, we're out. That's it.
Well, I will point out to anyone watching the show right now, live or after the fact, that sometimes because we're so used to being logical in our decision making, we look for evidence, right? So you walk into an office, you have an appointment, you did all the work to find a doctor for this one particular thing, a dermatologist, right? And then you get this bad feeling. You're like, well, that's deeply inconvenient. Why do I have a bad feeling? And then you look for evidence. What is interesting is that sometimes the evidence we need doesn't come till much, 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 much later. But when we learn to trust our intuition, we don't actually need the evidence to prove to us. Instead, we just trust it. And we know that at some point we'll probably understand what the feeling was. Yeah.
Yes. And it's that same thing. We get that. We look back and we go, why didn't I listen to that little voice right at the beginning? Why didn't I listen? And it's always that. I really prefer the feeling of, I'm so glad I listened to that little voice.
Amen. 100%. Then oh God, I knew that. Oh,
I knew it.
That's the worst.
I was right.
That's the worst. And I have had examples of that myself, but also in all my clients, right? Like, oh, yeah, all the time.
Yeah. I think most people can relate to that in some way. Yes. Yeah. So I've been feeling like I wanted to explore this more in the, how do we get deeper into it and start recognizing? So what is the best way for us to gain intuitive insight?
So intuitive insight requires really just a few things. One is the opportunity to turn the brain off for a moment, like give it like a little pause, and then turn ourselves towards really deep inwardly. And then there are tools you can use to do that. So for most of us, we are kind of all the time on a fact-finding mission, like Star Trek, right? And we're like looking and we're gathering evidence and we're gathering evidence. And then we are using our brain to kind of categorize it as important, useful, not important. And then from that, we make a decision. So when we want to use our intuition, we want insight or clarity, or we want to have like an awareness, a new awareness, we have to pause our fact collecting mission for a moment and turn our attention towards what's happening inwardly. So there are lots of different ways to do it. I always say the good news and the bad news. The bad news is that everyone sucks when they start meditating. That's a universal truth. The good news is that anyone can learn, and there's lots of different kinds. And so the thing I thought maybe I could bring to our conversation today is talk about what is a good tool that everyone can use immediately, even before they become a great meditator.
I would love to do that.
Okay, great.
Let's talk tools. I think tools are a great way to get that mind to turn off a little bit and focus in a different way. So,
well, and I want to give people this example. So all of us have had the experience where we're in the car driving, and the part of our brain that is like the neural pathways for the knowing how to do this kind of clicks on. And then we think about all these other things. And then all of a sudden we're at our destination. We're like, oh, wait, I'm here, right? And so this is kind of like that. Using tools allows the part of our brain that wants to like understand, dissect, pull apart, do things like all that kind of business. This allows us to do something in the concrete, give our body muscle memory something to do, while our mind, our space, kind of our awareness can open up and we can receive guidance. So that's what this is a little bit like. And I'll say one more thing, and then I'm going to teach everybody how to do this tool, because it's of all the tools I have, it's the one that you can use at any time, anywhere, really. You can't use it while you're driving because it requires writing. But aside from that, you can totally use it in business meetings and in a doctor's office. If you're getting a bad feeling, you can use it, when you're at home and trying to decide which school you should take your kiddo to. If you're trying to figure out, what is this thing that's actually going on inside? And is gluten-free the thing I should be doing? Should I be looking at, what do they call it? The Whole30, or is this a time to consider the carnivore, or whatever the thing is, right? This can help you guide towards a clearer sense of what your body and spirit is trying to communicate to you. So this is a brand new tool and people are using it for the first time. So you would not yell at a little kid who is trying to learn to ride a bicycle, because that would be really mean. So I'm looking at all of you saying, don't be mean to yourself. Be nice to yourself, because you're using this tool for the very first time. So to use this tool, you need a pen and a piece of paper. So I'll give everybody a moment, grab a piece of paper and a pen. This is called automatic writing or intuitive journaling. It's super, super simple. So every time you use a tool, the most important thing is using questions that are curiosity led. So here's what I mean. Sometimes we ask questions that we can hear our own bias to the answer in the question. Should I take this job? Well, what do you mean should? Should based on what, right? Or is this job is this the right job for me? Well, I don't know. Is it the right job for you, right? So open-ended, curiosity-led questions are really, really, really have you get curious. So here are some just simple examples about health. You could ask yourself, is this protocol the next best thing to do to feel great in my body? What are things I could stop eating, doing, or consuming that would help me feel my best? That's a good health and well-being question. You could ask, what is the source of my sleep issues? That was one I used in the past. You could also ask, what is at the source of my migraines, right? So you kind of get the idea. There's lots of, what is the source? What's really going on? What's hidden from my view about this area of life around my health? How do I have vibrant well-being? These are all kind of curiosity-led questions. If though you said, how do I stop having headaches? That's not a curiosity-led question. That's a fixing question. So we want to watch for fixing. Okay, so you got to write your question down. So in the area of health and well-being, you think of your question and you capture it on top of your piece of paper. And then how you do automatic writing or intuitive journaling is through 3 steps. You ask that question 3 times. You ask it once, you write down everything that comes to you. So do you know what your question is, Christy?
Well, I wasn't thinking about my top of mind is a little different, but in terms of health, do you want me to say?
Yeah. Could you say, just to give people an example of what maybe a health question would sound like?
Okay. So a curiosity led open-ended question.
Mm-hmm.
Is yoga the most how did you phrase that?
That's
Is
so
yoga
good.
the
Is it optimal for your well-being? Is yoga
is
an
optimal?
optimal choice for your well-being?
That's perfect right
Great.
there.
That's a great question. Now that's a yes, no question. So I would adjust it slightly to say something like, um, uh, how can I use yoga to improve my well-being? Because that's more open-ended. So we're not looking for a simple yes, no. So we write that question down, and then we're going to ask the question of ourselves 3 times in a row. Now, here's why you don't have to be a good meditator before you use this tool. The design of the tool is to allow how our brains naturally work. So you're going to ask the question the first time, you're going to write down everything that occurs to you. That will maybe take 30 seconds to a minute. Go ahead.
Right. And can I interject without any judgment or worrying about what's coming down on the paper? Just put it down.
100%. Do not, move it through any barriers that you have, any normal sort of like filters. Don't filter it. Just whatever comes to mind, write every bit of it down. When it stops, which naturally everything that's there will stop, ask the question again. And on your piece of paper, make sure that you put a big number 2 so you know which number you're writing is for which time you ask the question. So then you ask the question again. Take a moment, you go, okay, ask the question of yourself, close your eyes for a second so you can focus on the question, and then you write down everything you get. Super simple. Write down everything you get. Really don't filter. Don't take anything out. Don't worry about punctuation. And then eventually it will stop because that will be all there is. And then you go, okay, one more time. Again, notate that this is the 3rd time you're asking the question. Ask the question a 3rd time. Then, again, close your eyes because it's helpful just to get quiet for a moment. Ask the question again, and then write whatever comes. Now, here's the way that the tool is designed. The first time that you ask the question, you're just doing a brain dump. It's all the junk you already know. It's what was on, just like you said, it's what's top of mind.
Top of mind.
Top of mind. You'll go, yoga's good for my joints. Yoga will help me with my breathing. Yoga will help me sleep better, right? It'll be all the things you already know. And then you'll ask the question again, and now your brain's starting to be creative, right? You're like, oh, well, I can use it for helping me in the morning to, do postures that open up my breathing and wake me up. I'll look for postures that wake me up, right? You're like, oh, great. That seems like insight. And then the 3rd one is, you write down and then all it says is, find a yoga studio, start tomorrow. And the 3rd time we ask the question, it's intuitive insight. Now, here's the thing. Because we're funny about how we think intuition is, we think of it as like esoteric or like otherworldly or supernatural or something. Sometimes intuition and intuitive insight is really, really practical. Really practical. The intuitive insight I got about physical movement and exercise was find a book about how your brain and exercise work together. That was literally the guidance I got.
Wow.
Okay, gotcha. Right? And that's what I did, right? My friend Willow, I told you about how the doctor thing, and she went and they couldn't find anything. Her intuitive guidance was really clear. There is something wrong, trust it. That's really practical, right? Sometimes our intuitive guidance sounds like to us, even as we're writing stuff down, it just sounds like we're talking to ourselves. That's okay. That's why this tool is useful. First time it's a brain dump. Second time you get creative. Third time it's intuitive insight. It is a tool you can use not just about health, but I really think it's a great one about health because we have so many rules, so much past, so much emotional baggage about well-being. And, like we were talking about chronically healthy versus chronically, right, being unwell. Because of how our brain has been trained over time, this is a great tool to just circumvent all the junk in your monkey mind and dive into intuitive insight. That's just a good place to start, right? There's lots of different things that when I work with people one-on-one, we talk about understanding the mechanism of your intuition, how to use it in certain areas, why we are more emotionally connected in certain areas and less emotionally connected. How does that impact our ability to hear our intuition? But this tool is good no matter where you are in your connection to your intuition. It works well for everybody, whether you're a CEO or you're a mama trying to figure out what to do about her kiddo.
Right. And it seems to me like this is something that you have to set the time aside to do.
Yes.
You don't want to break it up because otherwise you go back to step one again. Your mind is going to start going back into, oh, I have to do the laundry and I have to get ready for work and I get the kids their lunches and so if you have to kind of do all three in one.
100%. That's very insightful, Christy. Yes. When you do this exercise, you do it from start to finish. Start to finish. It's like, you can't take all the ingredients out for the recipe and turn the oven on and not put the ingredients together. Otherwise, you'll never have the cookies. You have to go start to finish. So doing all three in a row is the recipe. Taking the time, right, is the ingredient, and then actually writing everything down. When you're done, your temptation will be to look at number 1 and number 2. Don't. You're just looking at what you wrote for number 3. Number 1 and number 2 aren't useful because those aren't your intuition. Only number 3 is your intuition. That's it. And sometimes it's the shortest thing that you write down is under number 3. Now, I teach 20 other tools in how to tap into your intuition, but I love this one for anyone about any topic because it has a way of, like I said, giving your conscious brain like something to do for a minute. It feels like it's being occupied as it's like, I'm writing down what I already know. And then I'm writing, I'm getting creative now. And then all of a sudden we get to the third one and we're like, nothing's going to come. And then all of a sudden you hear something, you see something, you get like a really strong message of some kind and you write that down. And that is in fact the insight you needed. So just to reiterate, because I think it's the important piece that people could forget, the question you ask has to be curiosity led. Mm-hmm. So if you ask the question and you think you already know the answer, you don't feel curious about it. You feel like you know it already. That's probably not a curiosity-led question. It's probably more like a, how do I fix this? How do I figure this out and avoid making a mistake kind of question? So just the really important part of this tool is take the time to get a really good question connected to what you're truly curious about so that you can be open to receiving the guidance that you want.
Yes. Oh, and receiving guidance is so underrated. We need to bring that out because we are programmed from the time we start school, probably even before that you have to think things over, that you have to consider all the facts, that you have to make lists of the pros and cons, that, you have to make the right decision. And you know what? Sometimes I've made a zillion wrong decisions in my life.
Me too. And I'll say, here's the thing. We're not throwing the baby out with the bathwater. Logic has its place. It's super helpful. Reading all the books I read about how brain chemistry works with exercise, that was really useful, right? Some really smart, some really smart scientists spent years, investigating brain chemistry and movement. Thank you for the dude who wrote that book. That was super, super helpful, right? So we're not throwing out logic. Whoever's watching this and is like, I don't know, science, but we're not throwing out logic. Intuition actually can help guide you to what you already have access to, what you already know, and help you narrow focus so that you choose the right practitioners, you choose the right protocol, you choose the right, sleep program for your baby, you choose the right school for your kids, you choose the right doctor for yourself, you choose the right exercise. In my family, we have this rule, like, as if it's not hard, it doesn't count. And I lived inside that rule with exercise for a really, really long time. And through the series of my own intuition, being led to great healing practitioners and doing my own kind of self work, which is the biggest part of who I am. I think we're always growing and changing, just like Andy said. I'm a work in progress for sure. That led me to understand that it all counts. All movement in our body counts. It all matters. So to me, every bit of intuition and intuitive guidance or insight you can get, it all counts, whether it's a little tiny thing like, I don't know why, but this isn't for me, or like, it's time to move to Australia, like whatever the thing is, big or small, listen, right? It all is useful and helpful.
Moving is the top of mind thing right now. So
interesting. I must have just like plucked that right out of the
right, yeah. And I have been shooting on myself with that. Like, should I go here or should I go there? And what would be the best? And I've gotten nowhere because all the facts and figures seem like it should go this way, but I keep feeling like I should go that way. So I'm going to do this.
I was just going to say, isn't it a funny thing when we're really, really attached to the outcome, right? So logical decision making is about avoiding making a mistake, but it's also about fixing a problem. And so when we approach our decision as though we're trying to fix a problem, right? We want to make the smart decision. Like you were saying, as kids, we teach them that. So for me, if I was doing this, right, and that was the thing that was in front of me, I would ask a question like, what are my first steps to choosing the best next place for my mom and I to live? Because that really feels like the aligned and curiosity led question.
Yes.
And first steps gives you a lot of space because you're trying to figure out the end result. And sometimes that's like 14 steps ahead. So when we ask, what's the first step? That sometimes like gives us a little bit of a break, right? If you're having, for example, migraines, my friend is like, how do I end migraines? And I'm like, well, why don't you just start with, is there something that can lessen the severity or the frequency of them, like how often you're getting them? And when she did this, she started to write some stuff down. And this won't surprise all of us at all, who especially chronically healthy, right? But it was stop drinking Diet Coke.
Oh, yeah.
And like, that was the thing at the very end. The very first thing she wrote down was like, I need to, EMF thing at home. I need to turn my router off and I need to like go to bed earlier and I need to drink more water. It was like on and on and on. More extras, blah, blah. And at the very end, it was like, change your Diet Coke habit.
That's important. I have to say, artificial sweeteners and chemicals, which is basically what diet soda is, bad idea.
Yeah. When we listen, it has a huge impact, right?
Exactly.
I'm the only woman in my family who is not on something to lower her blood pressure. I'm it.
Good for you. Yeah. It's
Exercise
amazing.
worked for me. Intuition worked for me.
Well, so I'll have to tell you at some point that actually I had an intuitive encounter that saved my life one time. So I'll have to tell you about that story sometime. But right now, how can people find you?
Please go to my website, simplespirit.com. Super easy. If you go there, you can take the test, the blueprint assessment that's right there on the screen, but also email me. You can email me at my first name, Shoshanna at simplespirit.com. We can have a chat about how I could help you tap into your own intuition. And also, if you work for an organization, if they need authentic communication training, because I do both. So I would love to connect with your listeners and see if I can help them.
Oh, that's wonderful. Well, this conversation has definitely been authentic. It's real and deep. It's wonderful. Thank you so much, Shoshanna.
Thanks, Christy. It's been a pleasure to be on again. I really appreciate it.
So stay tuned, everybody. Coming up next is our biohacking tip of the week.
Hi everyone, it's Andy, and on this week's biohacking episode, I want to talk about the importance of your vitamin D levels. It's late into January and February, and this is when cold and flu season often peak. And it's no coincidence that everyone around you is getting sick this time of year. The vitamin D levels that are stored in your body through summer, well, they bottom out through winter, right? Leaving you vulnerable to germs and EBGBs that are just passed around everywhere. Vitamin D levels are critical during this time of year to boost your immune system. But how do you know if your vitamin D level is low? The best way is a blood test to determine your levels. But here are 10 symptoms to look for to see if you're low in vitamin D. First one, maybe you have aching muscles, painful bones, fatigue, you're tired all the time. You got reduced muscle performance, meaning that you aren't as strong as you used to be. Right? Levels, athletes that perform better actually have higher vitamin D levels. Maybe you're feeling a little slow. Low vitamin D levels actually can cause dementia, depression, and even anxiety. Poor sleep. A lot of people that have poor sleep have low vitamin D levels. Slow healing. Heart problems. A lot of people that show that people with high blood pressure and bad circulation have low vitamin D levels. And the big one is recurring infections. If you're getting sick all the time from every virus that comes out, then more than likely your vitamin D is low. The best way to get your body to create its own vitamin D is, of course, through the sun, getting some sun exposure 20 minutes a day when the UVB is at its greatest. Of course, you don't want UVA. UVA actually gives you sunburn. You need UVB. But unfortunately, UVB fluctuates not only with the time of the day, but also fluctuates throughout the year depending on where you live. As you can see on the UV index map across the United States, the UV index is pretty low starting in October, and most of the northern to middle states will make very minimum vitamin D synthesis, and the southern states may maybe make a little. But as you go into November and January, almost all of the United States is barely able to make vitamin D, if any at all. Now, things get better in February and March for the southern states as UV index slowly increases again, and most states will have the ability to make vitamin D starting from April through September. Since we are in January going into February, and it's hard to make vitamin D during this time of year through sun exposure, it's very important to supplement with vitamin D to bring your vitamin D levels up. And the optimal levels you want for best immunity, best immune system, best functioning is 60 to 80 nanograms per milliliter. And depending on how low your vitamin D levels are, you may even need to supplement with higher doses of vitamin D daily, as high as 5,000 to 10,000 international units a day for 3 months before they can get to optimal levels. So what I suggest is hyper supplement for 3 months and then get tested a second time. And of course, we are not doctors and we're not prescribing medication. So always check with your doctors first before supplement with vitamin D. So don't be the part of the estimated 80% of the population that is low in vitamin D and is constantly getting sick with some viral infection. Get your vitamin D levels tested today. We'll see you next time.
Hello, we are Mutts and Meows Rescue, a 501c3 nonprofit, foster-based, no-kill group. Mutts and Meows Rescue pulls dogs and cats from surrounding shelters in the greater Houston area. We even pick up dogs and cats abandoned on the streets. Mutts and Meows Rescue is foster-based and rely on your donations to keep rescuing. To know more about us is to know more about our furry friends and help them find their forever homes. Come visit us at Mutts and Meows Rescue on Facebook today and decide how you can make a difference.
Healthy lives. So what do you think of Shoshana's interview?
I think it is very interesting how simple it could be just to ask the same question 3 times until you really narrow it down what the true answer is, right? Because the first question is just basically everything you already know you're doing wrong,
For sure.
right?
Yes,
So,
it's some patience.
yes,
Because it does take some time for you to just, be alone and really think this out. So I think it would take some practice, but I think it's a good idea. I love it.
for sure, for sure. I think that was very useful for a lot of our viewers out there. So, next week, actually today, it's right in between this episode and next week's episode. It's coming up to our 1 year anniversary. So it's been awesome. We've been doing this for a year, doing it live. We've been having so many amazing guests, sharing so many words of wisdom on how to live your life healthier, how to improve your finances, how to improve your relationships, and how to eat or not eat what you should be eating, right? So next week, it's, since it's going to be our anniversary episode, we thought that it'll be really good to really concentrate on what we're very passionate about, and that's really about health and of course longevity. So next week we are going to concentrate on holistic regenerative ways to heal your body and to extend your life and to reverse your age. And it's going to be fully packed with a lot of information. We're going to have snippets from doctors and everything. It's going to be so exciting. You do not want to miss next week's episode.
So you're bringing doctors to talk about non-doctor stuff?
Well, yeah, we're going to be having doctors that's talking about holistic ways of healing, that's not using medicine. And I think that is huge, right? Because, most doctors, they'll be just, they're just giving you a drug for a symptom, right? These doctors are now going and seeing the way to heal people is to get their bodies to heal themselves from the inside out. So I think that's very exciting.
Yeah, so you basically teaching your body to heal yourself rather than asking your drugs to mask your symptoms.
Exactly.
Sounds good. Who's our guest for next week?
Our guest is returning guest Sherry McCants. We're going to have a lot to talk about, and the beauty of it is healing from the inside out using your own body's energy. But yeah, that's all I'm going to talk about. You got to catch us next week on our anniversary episode.
That's awesome. So join us back here on Friday, 7 p.m. CST, especially next week. And you can watch past episodes at watch.e360tv.com in the Vitality TV network or on our YouTube channel. Now, if you'd like to know more about what we do and how we can help you live a life, visit us on our website, chronicallyhealthylife.com. And if any comments, questions, suggestions about our show, drop us a comment on our Facebook page, Chronically Healthy Life, or just email us at anything at chronicallyhealthylife.com. We will see you next week.
We'll see you next week.